Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Misa. You should definitely subscribe. I upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we talk about all things complexion, how to enhance your foundation routine, and yeah, I think it's been going pretty well, pretty fun. So I'd love to have you. Today I wanted to do this video on the bronzer tag. I don't know if you've heard about it. Have I done the blush tag? I can't even remember, but it's basically a bunch of questions that, you know, most overhyped, least expensive, most expensive, what is on my lip. If you're kind of obsessed with bronzers like me, then go ahead and keep on watching.
Lights are all around. I can see them now.
Now, I watched, who is it? Mandy Leah. She's one of my favorite YouTubers, but she recently did this, and it basically just starts with the first question is, what is your newest bronzer? I have all my bronzers set up like right here. So they're easy to grab, but my newest bronzer is the Fenty Beauty Cream Bronzer in the shade Teddy, and these are called Cheeks Out. It's a cream bronzer, and these are just absolutely flawless. I've been raving about them. I've used it today. Just the pigmentation is out of this world. I was completely taken aback. I love this to use this as a cream contour, or just like, you know, a cream bronzer because it doesn't go too deep. But the formula for this is amazingly creamy. It's just so easy to blend out. And the shade range, you have a lot of shades to choose from. I did read a lot of reviews that recommended to go like a shade darker than you usually do just because these sheer out really well, and I highly agree with that because this is the second to darkest shade. I also love this. It's very buildable, and the packaging is just super cute too. So this is, I just looked it up, it's $32. This is my newest one, and it's definitely been my go-to, and I really like to pair it with other bronzers and use it, you know, I've been using it like every time I do my makeup. The next question is, what is my oldest bronzer? And that is hands down the ColourPop Pressed Powder Cheek Bronzer. And I don't even have the shade because they didn't send the shade with it. Hopefully I can find it. But I've had this for a couple years now, and I just really like it. I don't gravitate toward it as much as I should, just since it's one of my older bronzers. I do feel like it's still good to go. Maybe it's not, maybe I need to go and get a different one. But this was actually really shocking to me because it was very blendable, buildable. It didn't pull to warm tones. I like to stay away from the warm tones. And I also don't want to go too cool tone. I just like want somewhere right in the middle. But for the price, I believe this is only like $8. Maybe it was even less than that. And then you buy the little case separately, and it's just been a great bronzer. Gosh, yeah, I just looked them up. They have so many different shades. It's a sheer, it says an easy on the go finishing powder, reduces shine and blurs imperfection. Love that. Yeah, this one's definitely, it's a good one. All right, my most expensive bronzer. This one is just an easy one because I remember buying this and it hurt. And it's my Hourglass, what is this called? I almost dropped it. This is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Bronzer in a Radiant Bronze Light. This one, I think it's a pretty penny. What is it, $55? And I agree, it hurts to purchase a product like this, but it's also, there's no product I found for a lesser price that's similar to this. It's infused with their ambient lighting technology, which has this ingredient, I think it's mica actually, that basically illuminates and lightens, and it just makes this glow look so natural. And I bought it this last summer, and I used it for our family pictures just because it just gives me that luminosity. This summer, this was my go-to bronzer, and I used it so often, and I still haven't hit pan. I think it's 100% worth the money. Granted, I do wait until like Sephora has a sale. In fact, so exciting because Hourglass is now in Ulta. So keep your eye out because I know Ulta just sent out a 20% coupon code. Look in your mailbox, check your email. Just keep an eye out for that because now that Hourglass is on Ulta, I mean, that is huge. The next bronzer is my everyday bronzer. Hands down, it's the Fenty Beauty Sunstalker Bronzer in Island Ting. Now this bronzer, I was very hesitant to purchase it. I purchased it way before I purchased the cream version of the Fenty bronzer. I feel like there's so many things that come into consideration with bronzer, and I especially feel like it's one of the most important parts of a look. You don't want it to look muddy, patchy, you want it to be blendable, you don't want too much fallout, you want it to be long lasting. Like there's so many things that go into play with a bronzer, and this one it just hits it all. This is a creamy formula. It's buildable. It looks natural. This version, it's matte. Sometimes it's nice to just have a matte bronzer. I'm wearing a little bit of it today on top of the cream one, and it's just one. This is my go-to. I use it almost every time I do my makeup. hands down. I do have to break myself out of the habit of using it, but it's just such a good option. I think it's what? I think it's $28. All right, so it's $30 and there are just tons of different shades. And this is actually my second one. So I actually went through a whole one of these last year and then I opened this one up a couple months ago. So I've hit pan on it and I attest to it. I think I'll always have this in my collection. Next question is which bronzer surprised me? And that's an easy one because it's this one by Estetica. You probably, maybe you never heard of this brand, and it's because it's a smaller brand. I received this in a BoxyCharm and I just initially thought when I received it that I wouldn't like it at all. I was just like, it's just going to be one of those brands I've never heard of that's making a product that's not very good. And I was completely wrong. When I used this, I was like, whoa, this is actually really nice. It's buildable, it doesn't fade, it doesn't look too crazy when I put it on. Like, it just felt like it matched my entire color. I like it because it's not too warm and it's not too cool. It's right there in the middle. I liked it because it was matte. And this is in the shade a Sunset Bronzer. Now, I do believe that this is about $20. I highly recommend signing up for BoxyCharm because it's about $20, I don't know, depending if you pay for 3 months in advance, it's like $23 a month. You get 5 full-size products. And I have just gotten so many products that I'm like, this is in here. Next question is the best memory bronzer. This question has always been hard for me when I did it in the blush tag because I don't tie a lot of memories to my makeup, especially because a lot of the momentous occasions I've had like in my life, like getting married, I didn't wear makeup. I didn't start wearing makeup, like full on makeup, until I was 25 years old and I'm 30 now. So, but this one ties into my memory because I remember it was the first high-end bronzer I had ever purchased. And when you do that jump from drugstore makeup to high-end makeup, you know, it's a jump. When you think about spending $20, $30 on a bronzer, you're kind of like, you know, I think I'll pass. But I remember it distinctly because I purchased not this exact set, but this Hoola bronzer, just because I had heard amazing things about it. I believe it was like $25 and I heard it was a great universal shade for everybody, good for contouring, good for bronzing. You couldn't go wrong. And so that was my first ever bronzer I purchased. Granted, this is in a set and I completely used up that bronzer. But I remember that day because I was like, oh, I really hope this works out because it was expensive. And it did. And now I do have several drugstore bronzers that I really like and enjoy, but I do feel like my high-end bronzers, they just tend to deliver a little bit more for me. They do last a little bit longer for some of them. Granted, you can still find some really amazing drugstore bronzers, which I have. How many do I have? I have like 3. I have 3 ones that I recommend. The bronzer that was worth the hype, 100% the Butter Bronzer by Physicians Formula. I do love the scent, light, tropical. It's not too heavy. I mean, they started coming out with more colors. This is my second one. I remember when they first came out and I think there were only like 2 or 3 shades and the other shade was just a little bit too light for me. So my shade is Sun-Kissed Bronzer. This 100% lived up to the hype. I remember when this was going rampant around YouTube. Everybody had it. Everybody was trying it out. Everybody was raving for it. And that's exactly why. I think Kathleen Lights was the one that convinced me to purchase this. And so I did. And yeah, it's been one of those great ones. I do think it pulls just a little bit orange. And so when I do use it, I like to, I don't know, just go in with a lighter hand. But I do feel like it lasts a decent amount of time. I do feel like there's not a lot of kickback. And I feel like the experience of this overall is great. I do feel like for drugstore bronzer is expensive. I think it's like $15. So you can always wait for a sale, a deal, especially at Ulta. They mark Physicians Formula like down by 30, 40% sometimes, like quite often. But this definitely was worth the hype. I love having this in my collection. Next question is the bronzer not worth the hype? And I'm going to talk about one that I actually don't have anymore because I just returned it a couple days ago, and that was the Charlotte Tilbury bronzer. I've talked about this in like 3 videos. I talked about it in a haul, I talked about it when I tried it on, and I talked about it on items I am returning. If you haven't seen that video, you can check it out down below. But I just wanted this high-end bronzer. There's something about the pan size. The pan size was like massive. And I had read on so many blogs and YouTube videos how amazing the bronzer was. Now I ordered the shade medium, which ended up being too light. And so I ordered the shade tan, which ended up being too dark. I did find that with tan, which is the only one I actually tried, it did apply a little patchy. It did come a little red. And the one time I did wear it, I wore it with my Milani Conceal and Perfect foundation, but it didn't last very long. But that was the one that wasn't worth the hype. And it was funny because when I went to return those bronzers, the girl at the front had about my same skin tone, and she's like, oh my gosh, I had the same problem. I ordered the medium, and then I ordered the tan, and she had the same problems. Next question is my favorite bronzer from my favorite brand. Hands down, easily, I have a toss-up because I really love Hourglass and I love Fenty Beauty. Like, I think these are my top favorite brands as of the moment, but it's going to have to be the Fenty Beauty Cream Bronzer. I just can't say it enough how much I'm in love with this bronzer and how much it's changed my foundation routine. I just feel like it adds that depth and that layer and dimension to my skincare routine that I've really been needing, especially for having dry skin. I've been working on incorporating more cream products and not layering on so many powders. And this has just, yeah, Fenty Beauty is definitely becoming my favorite brand. Next question is the most underrated bronzer, and I think that is the Milani Silky Matte Sun-Kissed Bronzer. Now, I don't feel like there are enough shades to this, but this bronzer, for the price and the tone, ooh, it's just good. I love how this is more cool tone. It means it will work great for a contour shade. The blendability is beautiful. There's not a lot of kickback at all. With drugstore bronzers, what I always notice is that there's more kickback, there's more fallout. The length of the wear of the bronzer usually doesn't last throughout the day. This one is super beautiful, super buildable. It's not an in-your-face bronzer. It's more of a subtle, natural bronzer. And how many shades do they have? I want to take a look at that. Okay, so it's $9.99, which is such a great price. And they have 3 shades. I think that is exactly where they are struggling. And my shade is sold out on Ulta.com. They need to expand that shade range because this is not all skin tones friendly. And I'm so sorry if they don't have a shade that matches your skin tone. So another bronzer that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about is this Maybelline City Bronzer. This is also a drugstore bronzer, also an amazing price. This has actually been one of my most used drugstore bronzers. It does have more kickback and fallout, but this summer I used this quite a bit alongside my Hourglass one, and I was just really impressed with this and used it quite often. So that's another one that I feel like doesn't get enough attention. Which, if you think about just how hard bronzers are to get right, Milani and Maybelline, like, thank you for making these. And then the last question is a bronzer that I kept that isn't my shade. I almost kept the Charlotte Tilbury. I almost kept it, but I didn't. And that's probably the one that I have is this one from Hourglass. It's in this radiant, it's in this little palette, and so it just came with it, and it's the Eternal Bronze Light. It works, but it's a little more gray, cool toned to my liking. So I didn't want to return the whole palette just because one bronzer wasn't exactly my shade match. I still use it. I use it in my crease, but if I use this, I do feel like I have to go in with another bronzer that I like. But it's probably a really good universal shade for them to put into one of these little that I'm obsessed with. If you want to try any of the Hourglass products, I highly recommend picking up one of these palettes. This is from last year. This is a Ghost Edit. They have a new one, which I kind of wish I picked up. I'm glad I, controlled myself because it's in gold and you have your ambient lighting powders, you have your strobe light, which is like your highlighter, and then it comes with a bronzer, and then it comes with 2 blushes. And that way you can try out all of their products, all their complexion products, for that one base price. Because if you buy each of these separately, it's so expensive. I think that that bronzer was $55. Anyway, those were all my bronzers, and you learned all about them. Yeah, I covered all my bronzers. Wow, I did it. Hallelujah. All right, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.